I'm with you guys. Okay, we are able to work now. So we said that a cell is a basic unit of life, and then we spoke of cell structure. We differentiated between a plant and an animal cell. Uh, we are going to, this is what you're going to get by this end of this lesson. Skills to focusing a microscope and preparing a slide, systems in a human body, all 7. Human reproduction, circulatory systems, and respiratory system. Also will focus on digestive systems. So we said that the cell is the basic structural unit of life. So all the living things consist of a cell. So now we said also cells are so small that they can only be seen under a microscope. So anything that can be seen using a microscope is called microscopic. So we've got both plant and animal cells have the same basic structures in them, or organelles. I want us to look at the following slide. These are organelles that you will find in your general parts of the cell. You will find in both your animal and plant cell. In all unicellular organism or multicellular organism, all cells have the following. All cells have a cell membrane, a cytoplasm, a vacuole, and a nucleus, also a mitochondrion. So we'll look at the functions of these general parts of a cell as we are continuing with our lesson. So a cell membrane forms the outer boundary of the cell. So the outer boundary of a cell, we call it a cell membrane. So now it surrounds the content of the cell. So whatever is inside of the cell is protected or by the cell membrane. The cell membrane is selectively permeable, so it means it controls which material passes inside and goes out. So you will see whatever is inside the cell membrane, whatever the cell membrane is protecting, we call it a cytoplasm. So a cytoplasm is a jelly-like substance that fills the cells. So now the cytoplasm consists of water with a complex collection of structures and materials that are dissolved or suspended in it. So your teacher already showed you before. If we go into the previous slide, here you would see that whatever is inside there, it's in the it's in the cytoplasm. If you see the point of cytoplasm there, and then all the material inside is suspended inside the cytoplasm. Then cytoplasm provides a liquid medium of all the chemical reactions that take place inside the cell. So the cytoplasm is responsible for the salts and everything that is inside the cell. Whatever is happening, your osmosis, your diffusion is happening within the cytoplasm. I'm hoping we are all okay. My next slide won't come up, but we will be looking at what we call now. We will be looking at the nucleus. So we already discussed the cytoplasm, the cell membrane. Now we're looking at the nucleus. So all the cells have a nucleus. So what is the function of the nucleus is to have all living contain a DNA. In the simplest cells, such as a bacteria, DNA occurs in the cytoplasm. Excuse the typo there. It occurs in the cytoplasm. So what happens is that now, if a bacteria doesn't have a nucleus, it doesn't mean it won't have a DNA. A DNA will be there, however, it will be found in the cytoplasm. Remember, we said the water or the liquid-like substance that is found within the cell is said to be a cytoplasm. So that's where you will find the DNA. But in an animal and a plant cell, you will find what you call a DNA in the nucleus. So now, in plant and animal cell, the DNA is contained in the nucleus, as I have said already earlier on. So now, what happens? What is the function of the nucleus then? The nucleus is a round organelle surrounded by a nuclear membrane. Remember that we said a cell has a cell membrane, also a nucleus that is found inside the cell in the cytoplasm of the cell. It has its own membrane. So now we already have a clear understanding of what is a membrane. We discussed that a cell membrane is selectively permeable, saying that it allows certain things to go in and allows certain things to leave out. So it's the same situation that goes with the nuclear membrane. The nucleus is a round organelle surrounded by a nuclear membrane. So nucleus has a deoxyribonucleic acid. So it is DNA, it's an acronym for deoxyribonucleic acid, meaning it deoxygenated. It doesn't have oxygen in to leave the nucleus. Therefore, there will be a process that will make sure that your DNA is found in your hair, it is found on your nails, it is found on all parts of your body, even in your saliva. It's because it cannot just move around on its own. Then DNA contains the information of inherited characteristics. So the DNA is the one that obviously will determine what are characteristics that are obviously inherited from generation to generation. And then we've got organelles. We said that organelles are quite large structures that are found in the cytoplasm of the cells. Some organelles are only found in plant cells and others are only found in animal cell. We'll look there when we continue with our lesson, which will be focusing exactly on which organelles that we find in the plant cell and we cannot find in the animal cell. We have organelles, we said, are quite large structures that are found in the cytoplasm of the cells. Some organelles are only found in plant cells. I've explained that one. And then examples of organelles, it's nucleus, mitochondria, vacuoles, and chloroplast. So now, for the first time we've been talking, I hope now we are able to define these terms. We said a cell, it's a structural basic unit of life, microscopic, only cells that we can view under the microscope. And then we said a DNA, it's an acronym for deoxyribonucleic acid that is found obviously in all cells. Then we even discussed that the DNA, it is found in all cells, even in simple cells. If it's not in the nucleus, the DNA will be in the cytoplasm. And then we said organelles. Organelles are large. We said organelles are large. Organelles are large structures that are found in the cytoplasm of the cell. Then we may continue. So now, which cell is which cell here? Remember, we are doing a revision now. If you are looking at these cells, you will be able to identify that the first cell there, it's a plant cell. How do you see that that is a plant cell? So it has a chloroplast. So now we all know that chloroplast contains chlorophyll. And then chlorophyll, obviously, it is used in the process of manufacturing food in plants, because chlorophyll is the one that receives sunlight and then it converts it to food. Remember, photosynthesis. Then with plant cell, it has also more of a rigid structure. It has a more of a rigid structure than that of a animal cell, because cell plants have a cell wall. So they've got a cell membrane, and then over and above the cell membrane, we have a cell wall. So that is the difference with the plant cell, with an animal cell again. If you're comparing these two cells on your screen right now, you will see that the animal cell has more of not so fixed structure around it. The membrane is not so fixed as a wall. So now, when you're looking at the animal cell, you will see that we do not have a cell wall. So that is the first difference between these two plants. The plant cell has a cell wall, and then an animal cell has a cell membrane. It does not have a cell wall. It only has a cell membrane. And then we also see that, but they've got more similarities than that of than the differences. I'm hoping we are all clear now. So now, can you remember this? They say to you, identify and explain the main differences between plant and animal cell. It's what I've just explained to you, grade 9s, that the first difference is a plant cell has a cell wall. That means it is not allowing almost everything to leave the cell, even though it has a cell membrane. Then the plant cell an animal cell has a cell membrane, and we all know by now that a cell membrane is selectively permeable. So it allows certain things to come in and out. So they say state whether the diagram of the cell in figure 8 is an animal cell or a plant cell. So what is it? What is it? Is it a plant cell or an animal cell? I think we can all agree that this is a plant cell. So if it's a plant cell, they say identify 3 structures that support your previous answer. So you would say it has a cell wall, it has a chloroplast, it has a large vacuole, because an animal cell has a smaller vacuole than the plant cell. They also say explain why these structures are necessary for this type of cell. Why is the plant cell? Why is the cell wall important? Why is the larger vacuole important? Why is the chloroplast important? Grade 9. Those are the questions you need to ask so that you can understand the difference between these cells. So, number 1, the cell wall is important to maintain obviously all the contents of the cell so that they may not leave, so that the cell can obviously reproduce. Remember that with the cell, we get food from the products, the fruits, the veggies, that will be the product of the cell. From the leaves, that's where we'll get the product of the cell. So it is important for a plant cell to store its food inside. Obviously, the larger vacuole, it is important because now remember that it stores more water, the plant cell. The plant cell stores more water so that it can germinate and reproduce. Then we get to, obviously, the chloroplast. Why is the plant cell important to have a chloroplast? it is important for a plant cell to have a chloroplast because chloroplast contains chlorophyll. As I've already mentioned earlier, that chlorophyll assists in the manufacturing of food, where it absorbs the sunlight and it converts it to actually food in a process known as obviously, it is known as photosynthesis. We all know that photosynthesis is the process by which plants use chlorophyll to convert radiant energy into food. So that's why I'm saying chlorophyll is important in the manufacturing of food, because chlorophyll is a green pigment found in chloroplast that gives plants their green color. I hope I'm not too fast. You are still following grade 9s. So you have now remembered that a cell is a basic structural unit of life, and that cells are microscopic. So when we say cells are microscopic, we said it means that cells, they can only be seen under the microscope. Then we also said that cells have a cell membrane, a cytoplasm, a nucleus, and organelles. So now we all know that both plant cells and animal cell have a nuclear, a cell membrane. And then we said that over and above in a plant cell, over and above a cell membrane, we have a cell wall. And then we said all the cells have a nucleus. But in unicellular cells or simplest cells, we said the nucleus is found in the cytoplasm. That means all the cells have a cytoplasm. And then we said organelles. Organelles are large structures that are found in the cytoplasm of a cell. And then we made an example that your vacuole, your nucleus, your mitochondrion will be your organelles. And then now we also said that you should know the difference between animal and plant cell. The previous slide, I showed you that this is a plant cell and it has these three different, they asked you about these three different, these three differences between a plant and an animal cell. We said a plant cell has a larger vacuole and it has a cell wall and it has a chloroplast. And then I also explained to you why do we have those antenna? Why do we have those things? But in the next lesson, we would look at cells in the tissues, organs, and systems. It is important that you look at this so that when we come back, we will be able to discuss these things. I hope next time I will be able to interact with you fully and we will go through a lot of things. But in the moment, I also want us to look at the differences between a plant and an animal cell, because it is important for you to know these differences. We say that plants and animals appear different from each other because their cells are different. So now I explained how they are different. And then we also said that if you compare these two plant cells, if plant and animal cell, if you're comparing them, you will see that there are certain structures and organelles that occur in the plant cell that do not occur in the animal cell. We said plant cells differ from animal cells in three main ways. I explained those ones. I'm hoping you guys have questions. Do you guys have questions? Any questions, grade 9? Because I don't want us to rush through the lesson. I don't want us to rush through the lesson, because if we rush through the lessons, we will not have done justice to our revision. This is when we are going to revise, because we'll be starting with chemistry. So now for term 2, but I thought it was fair for me to actually now start with the last term's work, where you might have had gaps, and then we continue gradually so going forward. Because the next lesson, we will be summing up our term 1 work, and it will be body systems, and then immediately after body systems, we'll look at the chemistry part of our thingy. But it is also important to know, like, you know, when they say give the correct scientific term for each of the following statements in your test or exam, you must be able to know. They can sometimes say, for like, as I'm saying, can you define these terms? They can say the functional unit of any living organism. What do we call it? A functional unit of any living organism. What do we call that? Grade 9s. So now we would say that for a functional unit of any living organism is a cell. Remember, I said to you, every living organism has a cell. Hence the definition. It says it's a basic structural unit. So it's a cell. Then a specialized instrument that is used to look at objects that cannot be seen with the naked eye. What do we call that specialized instrument? We call it a microscope. And then we continued, we said a term that describes an organism that consists of only one cell is a simple organism or a unicellular organism. It only has one cell. It has one cell, or yes. And then we also describe that if their what you call DNA is not found in the nucleus but on the cytoplasm. We said that a group of cells that all have the same structure and work together to perform the same function, what do we call that? So we said that multicellular organisms, and then we have unicellular organisms, and we spoke of microscopic organisms, grade 9. And I actually have a classwork, grade 9s, but if you would bear with me, I cannot access the slide. Grade 9s. What is happening? My computer is failing me, grade 9s. I cannot access my classwork slides. Anyway, it's not a biggie. I will post it on my social medias, as I did give you earlier on that we will be on. You can find me on Twitter at MbataX, or you can find me on Instagram at XKIM, and then you will get your classwork before the next meeting, and then I will obviously do the corrections when we come back live. And as you know that we are new on this teaching online thing, so yeah, maybe that's why I'm having a problem with this. But grade 9s, I want to focus more especially on this. More especially, this was my point of focus today, grade 9s. The nucleus, the organelles, and I'm hoping that you can define those terms now: a cell, microscopic, DNA, and organelle. Then now I want us to focus on the cells, as like they are the main part of today before, because I would have continued to the systems, but I don't want you to be overloaded with information. Next lesson will be focusing on systems, but it is important for you to know the differences of the cell. Then when we're looking at the organelles, guys, let us look at the mitochondrion. Mitochondrion is found in both cells. I'm hoping you are able to see my diagram there. So we say that mitochondrion is found in both cells. What else is found in both cells? And then we said cell membrane is found in both cells. What else is also found in both cells? It's nucleus. Remember that only simple cells that do not have they have a nucleus, but it is not found in a, no, they have a DNA, but it is not found in the nucleus. So now both cells will have a nucleus, but in the simple cells, you will not have nucleus. So where is their DNA stored? Because we did I did explain to you, grade 9, that the function of a DNA of a DNA is to carry hereditary characteristics. So those are characteristics that move from generation to generation. And then we also said that nucleus is it's an acronym for deoxyribonucleic acid, and DNA is an acronym, guys, for deoxyribonucleic acid. Please don't forget that. And then we have we have organelles. We've discussed organelles. We said are large structures that are found inside the cells. So in the cytoplasm, we already discussed the cytoplasm. And grade 9s, I'm not sure if you've got questions. I don't know how I'm getting those questions, but I want to answer any questions concerning what we have discussed today. We have questions. If you've got questions, I can answer any questions concerning what we've recapped today. Because if you know this, it will for you to understand what is tissues, what are organs, and what are systems, because we will be looking at that in our next recap session before we end our term 1, because after that we will be moving straight to a chemistry. I don't know if you've got any questions, grade 9s. If you do not have questions, I want you to focus on these links at the end of this session. You can go and check these links out. They will help you greatly. So what happens is that this lesson will be posted online, and then you can click on these links, and then you will get every other information concerning cells, from cells to organelles to different types of cells. You will get this from these links. You will also you don't want to miss the next lesson. As I said, we will sum up the first term revision and go straight to chemistry. I know that you guys are familiar with this work, but with the lockdown, we haven't been into classes, so I felt it is important that we actually look at this work as a welcoming, so that you also get used to me, and I'm also familiar with this thing, as I've just explained to you that I will be actually getting used to all these things. But for more information in our stuff, you can actually follow us on social media at Africa Teen Geeks, at Iziora and DBESA and Social Foundation, or you can just hashtag STEM Champions. I don't know if my host wants to take questions. I don't know if my host will open questions so that I can take questions. I'm waiting on my host, grade 9s. I can see some people are raising hands so that we can engage. Hello? Hello?
Yes.
Yes, you may ask the question.
van tijd voor die af en toe enige begin.
Nee.
Must I do it source? You ask questions.
Hello?
I'm not on.
Any natural science questions?
Not really, no.
Hello?
Yes.
Anyone who wants to ask questions?
Nope. I don't think so.
You just ask guys and direct message with the
Jadi itu masih
dan moro di pikiran